Nashville is preparing to say goodbye. And the question everyone is asking right now, when, where, and who will be in that room, is beginning to find its answers. David Allan Coe died in an intensive care unit on April 29, 2026, at the age of 86. His wife Kimberly was beside him. His 8 children, scattered by decades of distance and walls he built himself, were not. And now, as the family processes a loss that is both enormous and complicated, the country music world is waiting for the date, waiting for the location, waiting for the moment when the doors open and the people who loved David Allan Coe, on stage, off stage, and in the complicated private rooms where his real life happened, can finally gather and say what needs to be said. In this video, everything we know so far about the public funeral service, the location that is being discussed, the confirmed attendees, the artists who have already spoken and who will without question walk through those doors, and what this farewell is going to look like for the man who spent his whole life refusing to make anything easy. Let's start with the location, because where you hold the funeral of David Allan Coe is not an arbitrary decision. It is a statement, and the location being discussed, the one that has surfaced in conversations across the country music world, is the only place that makes complete sense. The Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee, the mother church of country music, is being discussed as the venue for David Allan Coe's farewell. The Ryman, the building he tried to get noticed outside for years, the institution he spent decades being at odds with, too loud, too raw, too unbothered by the rules for the establishment that called that building home. And yet, the only place in Nashville with enough history, enough gravity, enough soul to hold a goodbye as large as his. He slept in a hearse outside the Grand Ole Opry, which for years called the Ryman home because he had nowhere else to go. He was turned away. He was dismissed. He was told in every way that Nashville knows how to tell someone that he did not belong. And now they will bury him there, because that is what outlaws earn in the end. Not acceptance during their lifetime, but the acknowledgement after they are gone that the place was never the same without them. No official public date has been confirmed. His representative said David is a musical treasure, and that even in his years of declining health, he appreciated all of his fans. The family is still in the earliest hours of grief, and grief does not move on a press schedule. But the expectation from everyone inside the Nashville community is that when the announcement comes, it will come with enough notice for the people who need to travel to get there. Because the people who love David Allan Coe are not all in one place. They are spread across every corner of country music, across every state that ever had a honky-tonk where his records played, across every working-class American who heard "Take This Job" and shove it and felt it in their bones, across every songwriter who ever learned from the way he constructed a lyric that the truth, the full, uncomfortable, unvarnished truth, is always the better choice. They will come. When the date is announced, they will come. Now, who will be in that room? Because the confirmed and expected attendee list for the public funeral of David Allan Coe is a who's who of outlaw country royalty. And what each of them will be bringing into that room goes far deeper than professional respect. Willie Nelson, the last outlaw standing from the original movement. Along with Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Jesse Coulter, and others, Coe was a major part of the outlaw country movement that swept Nashville in the mid-1970s. Waylon is gone, Johnny is gone, Chris is gone, and now David. Willie Nelson will walk into that Ryman carrying the full weight of a movement that is almost entirely in the past now, and the specific grief of a man who has watched his whole generation leave before him. Tanya Tucker, the woman whose career he helped launch when she was 13 years old, who recorded "Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone" and took it to #1, who called him her buddy, who said it really breaks her heart that she didn't get to say goodbye. She will be there, because 50 years of shared history does not stay home. Billy Ray Cyrus, who announced he is dedicating his entire new album to David Allan Coe, who said simply, "I wouldn't be me without you." He will be there with the specific gratitude of a man who knows exactly what he owes and wanted to say it out loud before it was too late. It was too late, but he will show up anyway, because that is what you do. Rodney Crowell, who sat around a table with David Allan Coe in 1975 during the filming of the documentary that captured the outlaw movement at its most raw and real, who watched a young David Allan Coe be exactly himself in a room full of people being exactly themselves, and felt the electricity of a movement that was changing everything. He will be there. And the children, the 8 children, Tanya Montana Coe, Carla, and the 6 others who spent years being kept at a distance, who tracked down their father's address and performed wellness checks and texted numbers they weren't sure he was even on the other end of, who found out he was dead on social media, who begged strangers on the internet to tell them when the funeral would be. They deserve to be in that room, and based on everything Tanya has said, they are determined to be there. No more walls, no more distance, no more closed doors between David Allan Coe and the children who never stopped loving him. He maintained he was integral to the outlaw country movement getting its name, stating that at an outdoor festival in Oklahoma, he was wearing his Outlaws Motorcycle Club colors and rode his motorcycle up on stage while Waylon was singing. That is David Allan Coe on a motorcycle on a stage in Outlaws colors, while Waylon Jennings was singing. That is the man being buried. And here is what his funeral will need to somehow hold. The songwriter who gave away his best songs. The man who slept in a hearse because he believed in himself when nobody else did. The father who kept 8 children at arm's length for reasons he took to his grave. The husband Kimberly called her life and her confidant. The outlaw who wrote the perfect country song. The boy from Akron who spent 20 years in institutions and walked out at 27 and drove straight to Nashville because he had nowhere else to go and no plan except the music. A posthumous album is expected to be released on what would have been his 87th birthday, September 6, 2026. One final record on his birthday, because even in death, David Allan Coe is not finished making music. The funeral date will be announced, the Ryman doors will open, and the people who loved this impossible, brilliant, complicated, irreplaceable man will fill every seat. Willie, Tanya, Billy Ray, Rodney, the children who never gave up on him, the fans who felt the songs in their bones for 50 years. They will all be there, because that is what outlaws earn in the end. Not acceptance, not mainstream success, not the Grand Ole Opry membership they were denied. A full room of people who knew exactly who he was and showed up anyway. Rest in peace, David Allan Coe. September 6, 1939, April 29, 2026. The long hard ride is finally over. Thank you for watching.